This is Southern Oregon University. On Friday, the Board of Trustees is scheduled to vote on a plan that would close or reconfigure 13 academic units and cut roughly $20 million from the institution. That plan may buy time. It does not yet give SOU a reason students should choose it. I want to tell you why I think there's a better plan and why what happens here in Ashland matters in places far beyond it. I'm not a critic from the outside. I have skin in this game. And I am telling you that the plan currently on the trustee's desk is built on the wrong premise for the question SOU actually faces. Deloitte has given SOU a path to become smaller. What it has not given SOU is a path to become more necessary. That is the missing piece. Friday is not just an SOU vote. It is a test case for whether rural America gets to choose its own future in the AI century, or have someone else choose it for us. If you live in this valley, this is about the one institution that most anchors our cultural and intellectual life. If you live somewhere else, stay with me. The same fight is coming for your region. It may already be there. This is a fight that travels. So here's what is on the table. A consulting firm called Deloitte spent 6 months evaluating SOU and gave the board a financial sustainability plan. The May 4th option plan recommends roughly $20 million in cuts. It is a major strategic narrowing of the university. Deloitte's analysis is formally multi-factor. It considers operational efficiency, financial contribution, labor market alignment, and mission alignment. But the public logic of the academic cuts rests heavily on direct margin per student credit hour. These numbers matter, but numbers are not strategy. There's something else worth noticing about Friday's plan. In 77 pages, the word AI appears 0 times. Artificial intelligence, 0. Automation, 0. The most significant technological transition since electrification, and the report charting SOU's next 10 years doesn't mention it once. The workforce chapter lists the jobs SOU should prepare students for: general managers, office supervisors, sales reps, truck drivers, medical secretaries. Every one of them squarely in the path of AI displacement or transformation, named without flinching as if 2034 will look just like 2025. In May of 2026, this is borderline malpractice, and it is the gap the rest of this proposal exists to fill. Deloitte's April 28th implementation risk slide says SOU has no margin for error. It also says alternative plans, including a controlled wind down, should be prepared if those milestones are not hit. Read that alongside the May 4th plan, and one fact becomes clear. Every path on the table this Friday is a gamble. The question is not whether SOU is taking on risk. The question is which gamble has the best odds. I want to argue that the plan as proposed is the riskier of the available bets, not because the math is wrong, because the plan, by stopping at fiscal sustainability, leaves SOU with a story that says, we are a generic regional comprehensive university, smaller than we used to be, and we hope you will enroll. That story does not pull students into the recovery. It tells them to stay away. There is another path, same overall savings, substantially the same retained programs Deloitte's plan already keeps, different strategic identity layered on top. Let me show you what that looks like. SOU should become a bioregional university in the full sense of the term. That means organizing the academic core around 5 anchors that share a common methodology: applied enterprise, applied human services, applied bioregional ecology, applied creative economy, and applied technology. What ties them together is exactly what Deloitte's report doesn't name: a way of working in a place during an AI transformation. It's called the bioregional applied lens. You'll notice every anchor I'm about to describe starts with the word applied. That is not packaging. It is the signal. Most universities teach disciplines. Biology is biology. Education is education. The same textbook in Salem and Eugene and Ashland. A bioregional applied lens does something different. It teaches every discipline through the specific concerns of a specific place. Biology becomes the biology of this watershed, the actual fire ecology, the actual hydrology, the actual species. Education becomes preparation for the schools that exist within driving distance of campus, with the demographics and economic conditions those schools actually face. Enterprise becomes value creation inside the actual economy of Southern Oregon, not a generic case study. The disciplines stay recognizable. The work that disciplines produce becomes fundamentally different. A generic biology program competes on price with every other state school. A biology program built around research partnerships with local tribes, watershed councils, fire districts, farms, forests, and public agencies becomes something else entirely. It becomes a specific and bankable thing. The same applies across every anchor. And here's what makes this nationally significant rather than only locally important. The depth is local. The methodology is portable. Students who learn bioregional applied practice in the Klamath-Siskiyou become the people who know how to do this work in any bioregion. The Driftless, the Ozarks, the Sierra foothills, the Mississippi Delta, the Cumberland Plateau. Every region in America is being asked right now to do exactly the kind of place-rooted work this methodology produces. Almost no university teaches it as an institutional identity. SOU can lead from the front. And this is not a new pattern. It is a 21st century revival of one of the most successful public university models in American history. The land-grant universities, founded under the Morrill Acts, were designed around a related premise: place-rooted institutions producing useful, portable knowledge. Wisconsin's Lake Science, Iowa State's agronomy, Texas A&M's agricultural engineering. These institutions studied particular places and produced methods that traveled. The bioregional applied lens is the AI and climate century revival of that tradition, updated for the work the next 50 years actually requires. 5 disciplinary anchors, 1 unifying lens. That combination is the proposal. Here are the 5. Applied enterprise. This is how we do value creation in a transforming economy. Students here are not just reading Harvard case studies. They are inside regional businesses, farms, nonprofits, public agencies, startups, and civic institutions working on decisions that affect actual livelihoods. Built from business administration, currently one of SOU's strongest programs, Applied Enterprise becomes the foundation that runs through everything else. Applied Human Services. This is the next generation of teachers, counselors, and health workers prepared for the region that desperately needs them and for other regions like it. Students here are training to walk into rural classrooms, mental health crises, community health programs, and service systems in places where these workers are in the shortest supply. Education, psychology, health sciences, and counseling form the core. This is the largest anchor by a mile. Applied bioregional ecology. This is the science and practice of a living watershed. Students here are outside, in the field, doing the actual work of understanding and stewarding the Klamath-Siskiyou. Fire science specific to these slopes, ecological restoration grounded in real partnerships, monitoring that cannot be done from a distant campus because it depends on people who actually live here. Biology, environmental science, and outdoor adventure leadership belong here, with indigenous knowledge faculty and tribal partners treated as core intellectual partners, not decorative advisors. Applied creative economy. This treats cultural distinctiveness as economic infrastructure. That is what Ashland already does better than almost anywhere else. Theater, film, music, writing, visual art, festivals, design, storytelling, tourism, and place-based culture are not extras. They are part of the region's economic engine. Students here work alongside the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, local arts organizations, media producers, designers, and cultural entrepreneurs. They use the production tools coming out of applied technology, sound design, AI-augmented production, communications, theater, art, creative writing, and emerging media. This is where parts of the music program can be preserved, not as a standalone department, but as audio, composition, performance, and production capacity inside a larger creative economy engine. Applied technology. This is the most urgent anchor and the one that may feel the most counterintuitive. Applied technology is a values-led commitment to integrating emerging tools, especially AI, into work that matters in specific places like Southern Oregon. The model is what regional partners demonstrated at Rogue Rays this past spring. Take a real problem like wildfire resilience in this watershed, apply new technological capabilities, deliver working prototypes quickly, learn from the field, repeat. This is the school for people who want to wield these tools in service of say an indigenous community, a creative ecosystem, a regional economy, a civic campaign, a classroom, a small business, or a health system. Anywhere the work has real stakes and the place has specific texture. Applied technology is not merely a curriculum decision, it is an institutional posture. Computer science is the disciplinary home, but the practice runs through every other anchor: AI for fire risk modeling, bioregional ecological monitoring, regenerative business modeling, education technology for under-resourced regional schools. It is SOU saying, we are an institution that evolves with our tools, and we teach students to do the same. The university that does this is structurally different from the university that does not. It's the difference between a place that evolves with its tools and a place that gets evolved past. Most universities like ours cannot make the shifts. Faculty governance, budget structures, alumni expectations, accreditation requirements, and internal habit all create a gravitational pull toward continuity. Universities are designed to change slowly. That is usually a feature, but in a moment of acute technological transition, it becomes a threat. The fiscal crisis at SOU is, paradoxically, the thing that makes this move possible. Under normal conditions, an institution like SOU could not realign itself this quickly. The crisis temporarily suspends some of the constraints that would otherwise prevent the realignment. That is rare. That is valuable. This moment cannot be wasted on preserving a smaller version of what SOU has been. Now, here is something important about how these 5 anchors actually work. They are not 5 separate paths students choose between. They are 5 capacities that combine into specific work paths. Programs at the Bioregional University of Applied Practice would be organized as combinations of 2 or more anchors with required integration through capstone work. A climate documentarian is bioregional ecology plus creative economy. A regenerative business founder is enterprise plus bioregional ecology. A community mental health organizer, human services plus enterprise plus technology. Every graduate leaves with a degree that names a specific combination. Every combination is a work path no other university is built to generate. The 5 anchors are not a menu. They are primary colors. This does not require inventing a new university by September. It requires 3 immediate moves. First, name the 5 anchors now. Second, preserve and reorganize the courses that serve those anchors, even where legacy departments change. Third, announce formal partnerships before the next admissions cycle. The first 90 days are not about solving everything. They are about changing the public story from managed decline to focused reinvention. The savings target can still be hit. The strategic core can still be intact. Those 2 things are not in conflict. And here's the thing that should make trustees sit up. The infrastructure to make this real is already operating in the Valley. The Oregon Shakespeare Festival, Indigenous Knowledge Holders, Southern Oregon Innovation Hub, White Rabbit, the regional startup community, Rogue Valley AI Lab, watershed councils, fire districts, farms, health providers, schools, civic groups. An SOU that names these as formal practicum partners on day 1 would not be starting from scratch. It would be plugging the academic enterprise into a regional ecosystem that is already here and growing. The argument is this. In 2026, the most strategically valuable position a small university can occupy is to be the first place in America that takes bioregional applied practice seriously as an institutional identity, not just a curriculum. 3 years from now, SOU could be the first institutional home for one of the most important emerging fields of the AI century. Or it could become a smaller version of every other generic regional comprehensive university in the country, indistinguishable from 50 others, competing on price for an overserved and shrinking student population. That is the choice on Friday's agenda. I want to back up and explain why the strategic frame matters more than the fiscal one. To do that, I need to talk about what large systems fail to see. The political scientist James Scott had a name for this pattern. He called it seeing like a state. Central planners look at a complex working system, say a prairie, a city, a fishery, an economy, a university, and they see mostly noise. What is legible to them is what can be measured from a central vantage point. What is illegible is, well, everything else. Local knowledge, informal networks, practical wisdom, trust, culture, belonging, the fragile stuff that often does the real work. So they reorganize the system to make it legible. The Great Plains get plowed as if the prairie sod were an obstacle instead of the soil retention system. A neighborhood gets cut apart by an expressway because on a map, it just looks like empty space. A fishery gets reduced to a biomass model and collapses because the model cannot see the living structure of the ocean or the people who know it. The things the planner cannot see turn out to be the things doing the actual work. That is the danger here. Deloitte's spreadsheet can see gross margin per student credit hour. It cannot see what SOU means to the cultural, civic, ecological, and economic life of this valley. It cannot see the kid who stays in Southern Oregon because SOU gave them a path into teaching. It cannot see the partnership that does not exist yet, but could become the reason a student from Montana or Maine or the Mississippi Delta chooses Ashland. The spreadsheet is useful, but it is not sovereign. Now, look at the AI moment. The frontier AI labs often see the world as a global cognitive labor market, priced in tokens, optimized on benchmarks. They can see tasks, they can see costs, they can see automation curves. They do not easily see a watershed. They do not see the third generation orchardist who knows which slopes hold a late frost. They do not see trust between neighbors, the life of a main street, or the specific problem of fire in this valley with these winds and these fuels. None of that compresses cleanly into an eval. None of it shows up neatly in a labor market chart. So the frame misses it. And when the frame misses it, the future starts to look inevitable in all the wrong ways. This is why the SOU vote matters beyond SOU. Every rural region in America is being asked right now to make itself legible to forces that will then optimize it into commodity status. The university gets a Deloitte. The hospital gets a McKinsey. The newspaper gets bought by a chain. The farm gets a contract that turns it into a node in someone else's system. Each comes with a spreadsheet. Each spreadsheet has a version of the same answer, become smaller, become generic, become absorbed. The bioregional thesis is the answer to that frame. It says the valuable economy is the watershed, the food shed, the cultural region, the civic commons. Value is generated by relationships at human scale. AI does not replace this work. But a small group of motivated people in a place like this can now build infrastructure for that place that until 5 years ago would have required a team of 50 engineers in San Francisco. That future is not theoretical. It is happening in fragments in places like this one right now. SOU could become the institution that teaches it on purpose. Now, let me address the most reasonable objection to the proposal. Concentration is bold. The bioregional applied practice framing is bold. Rebundling the academic core around 5 anchors is bold. Someone in the trustee room on Friday is going to ask, in a fiscal crisis, isn't the responsible move the cautious one? Cuts, slow rebuilding, a few measured experiments. See how it goes. I want to argue that in this specific situation, the cautious move is the riskier one. There is a class of crisis where timid responses kill the patient and bold ones save them. Cardiac arrest, sepsis, late-stage cancer, battlefield medicine. And each, the intervention that looks aggressive on paper can have better odds than the intervention that feels measured. Not because aggressive is always right, but because the measured response misreads how fast the underlying situation is degrading. Watchful waiting can become a slow yes to the bad outcome. The mechanism here is enrollment perception. A plan whose public face is academic cuts, institutional contraction, and a controlled wind-down contingency tells every prospective student in the next 2 application cycles that SOU is dying. That perception is the kill condition. The plan eats itself because the demographic math underneath it depends on enrollment that the plan's own framing may destroy. There is no version of this where SOU cuts its way to stability without a story compelling enough to pull students in faster than the cuts push them away. In a fiscal crisis, the conservative move feels safer because its failure mode is invisible until it's irreversible. A specialized institution staking a claim on bioregional applied practice attracts a different kind of student than a university managing decline. Intentional students go where bets are being made, not where institutions are bracing for impact. Bold moves are not the risky option here. They are the only option with positive expected value. Friday is not a vote between a safe plan and a risky one. It's a vote between 2 gambles. One bets on managed decline, and a story that makes the math worse the longer it's told. The other bets on concentration, identity, and a story that gives students a reason to enroll into the recovery rather than around it. For a board with fiduciary responsibility, the second gamble is the only one consistent with actually trying to save this institution. Now, I need to talk to the people in this valley who are already skeptical of AI. I see you. You are right. The version of AI being marketed to you is one you have correctly identified as a threat to creative practice, to cognitive labor, to ecological balance, to truth itself. You are not wrong about any of that, but I want to make a precise distinction. You can be against the way Sam Altman thinks about AI and still want to learn how to use these tools to defend the Klamath. In fact, I would argue that is the only honest position. The reason an applied technology anchor belongs at SOU is that it is the first institutional answer to your critique that does not amount to opting out and losing. Refusing to engage does not make AI go away. It just means AI happens to Ashland instead of through Ashland. The watershed gets monitored by someone else's model. The fire response is shaped by someone else's training data. The cultural narrative of this place is written by tools no one here built or controls. The choice is not to embrace AI or reject AI. The choice is who wields these tools for this watershed. If the answer is someone in San Francisco who's never seen the Klamath, then we have lost the argument no matter how skeptical we were of the technology. If the answer is the people who actually live here, including the tribes who have been here longest, including the artists and the farmers and teachers and skeptics who have made this their home, well, then we've built something that no frontier lab will ever build, that no Deloitte spreadsheet will ever optimize, and that no AI pessimist will ever have to apologize for. The most thoughtful AI critics I know are exactly the people who should be at the controls. That, more than anything else, is what bioregional applied practice at SOU would teach. Let me bring this back to Friday. The future that the AI labs warn us about is not the only future on offer. The one we are building is smaller, slower, more local, and much more fun. It is also, I think, the only one that gives rural America a real shot at autonomy in the next 20 years. SOU is the first institutional test of whether this scales. If it works here, it can work in 50 other watersheds with universities just like this one. If it fails here, well, the next 20 years probably look much more like the 20th century dust bowls and expressways through neighborhoods that I was talking about earlier, just at a planetary scale. The SOU Board of Trustees is holding a public listening session tonight as I record this. They've invited public testimony, and unfortunately, I was unable to attend due to travels. I'm sending this testimony and proposal with best wishes. The trustees are scheduled to vote this Friday, May 8th. Now is the time to speak up and make our voices heard. If you live somewhere else, the same fight is coming for your region. Feel free to take any of the ideas here that resonate. This is one of those rare moments when an institution gets to choose what it becomes instead of inheriting what it was. Most universities never get this opening. SOU has it. The question on Friday is whether the trustees use it or waste it on preserving a smaller version of what SOU has been. We do not save SOU by making it generic. We concentrate it. And then we get to find out what an actual rural future looks like in the AI century on terms we set in a place we love with neighbors we know. Come build with us, or build it where you are.